Hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Ari and today it's TBR Day. My TBR game is called Dungeons of Books and it is based on a D&D character sheet where I have this character sheet looking thing and I do a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of steps, but it's pretty easy to follow along with. Before we jump in, let me talk about what I read last month and make sure that I completed my entire TBR so I don't have to take any punishments. I didn't have any modifiers last month that made it where I needed to read like a certain percentage of books or like no DNFs or anything like that. So let's just talk about what I read, what I DNF'd, all the basic stuff. First up was my series continuation, which was The Sword of Destiny, which is book 2 in The Witcher, book 2 in recommended reading order of The Witcher, though I think this was the first published book. I DNF this, as you can probably see by the bookmark on the top of this. Why is this so sexist? Why does every line have to be about a woman's anatomy in some way, shape, or form? I'm so confused. I don't remember the first book being like this, but if you've read this whole series, let me know if I should like continue on with the series or if it's just all going to be references to women's anatomy as part of every single conversation. My audiobook was The Curse of Penthroth Hall. This was fine. I read it. For strength, I read The Sunlit Man by Brandon Sanderson. This also filled the prompt for Human on the Cover. For dexterity, I read Dig, finished that. For constitution, I finished Feybound. For intelligence, I read Lovecraft Country. Almost DNF'd this, but I made it through at the end thanks to the audiobook. For wisdom, I rolled a 20, got a free choice, and read The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones. For charisma, I picked up The Ones We Burn. I DNF'd this as well. I didn't know it was about witches. You would think The Ones We Burn that I would know it was about witches. But yeah. Witches are not for me. I recorded this a few days ago and I'm editing today. And it turns out I just didn't want to talk about like any of the books. Like I just show you the book throughout the video, don't say anything about the book itself. So expect a lot of interruptions from editing me. But for these recap books, it's gonna make the video too long if I sit there and talk about each one of them. If you want my thoughts about any of these books, I have both my Goodreads and my TikTok linked down below. I should have reviews of all of these books on both. If you can't find a review for any book that you really want to know what I thought about it, just leave it in the comments below and I'll answer you down there. We'll get this done somehow, some way. Even though I had a couple DNFs, I still at least started everything, which is the default settings to my TBR game, so I completed this month. Let's jump real quick into April and see what I'm getting for April. As always, we start off with the cards where I determine what my race, class, background, and alignment. I can count. Alignment is. First up is race, where I pulled elf. I've pulled this one before, no big deal, this is very easy. It's pretty cover, which just means one of the books that I have on this TBR needs to have a pretty cover, or if it doesn't, then I have to add an extra book to my TBR at the end. Pretty cover is fairly easy, so I shouldn't have a problem with this. Next up is class, and as you saw, I pulled Paladin. And the prompt for this is project books only. Now, what a project book is one of two things. Either I have a video planned in the month of April that I would need to read specific books for, so that's a project, or like 24 and 24 is a project. 5-star predictions is a project. So all of the books that I have a personal choice in, I need to pull from a project. That's kind of not a great one to get this month because I don't really have any projects. I am participating in Aurelium, the readathon this month, so I guess that could technically count as a project if one of those books is on my TBR. And then my other project, the only video I'm doing this month is an ARCs or ARCs / new releases. Next up is my background activity of the month is going to be yoga. Because I'm an acolyte. Well, this basically means that I'm going to be doing daily yoga. You're not going to see that in a vlog. There's no way I'm recording myself working out, but I will be doing daily yoga. I'll try to figure out a way to keep track of it so I can at least cover it in the wrap-up, but I'm not sure how yet. Last one is alignment. And I am chaotic evil. Once I finished filling all of these books for my TBR, the very end I need to roll a d6, and then whatever book it lands on I can't read for this month. And that combined with the Paladin, where I can only put project books on here, is kind of a pain in my ass. Because like, the books I'm putting on here, I'm putting on here for a purpose. Like, I need to read them. So the fact that one of those books I am not going to be able to read is not a good thing. Okay, let's just get into it. Now for the actual books. First off, I have my jars. We have the series continuation jar because I continue a series every month, and then we have the audiobook jar because I read an audiobook every month. Series first as always, and I got, as you probably already saw, the Legends of the First Empire, which I need to read book 2 of, which is Age of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan, I think. Ooh, I hope that's right. So that's this. I read the first book for Goodreads Choice probably 2 years ago. So I'm a little outdated on this. I might need to find some cliff notes to get a refresher on book 1. This is a political fantasy series with gods and humans. In book 1, the humans have been worshipping gods who are very cruel to them for many, many years, and a human boy manages to actually kill a god, and humans realize that holy shit, the gods aren't immortal like we thought they were. And then a rebellion starts. And this is just a continuation of that story. For audiobook, I got Channel Kindness. Is this gonna... yeah. I believe this is a short story collection produced by Lady Gaga, or produced on behalf of Lady Gaga's charity? I'm not sure. I just know it's associated with Lady Gaga somehow. Alright, now into the attributes, and the first one up is strength. I rolled an 18, and the prompt on that is a hyped book, and I need a project book, so I'm going to read an arc for this, which is Hemlock Queen. This is the sequel to The Foxglove King, both by Hannah Witten, and this is kind of like a hyped up fantasy romance series that everybody on TikTok was buzzing about last year. I thought the first book was okay, but I'm willing to read the second book and I got an arc for it, so why the hell not? This will also take care of my prompt for a pretty cover, because I like flowers. In this universe, the magic is called Mortem, and it is the magic of death. But we follow Lore, who was born into a cult, making her extremely powerful with Mortem, but it's illegal because only this like group of warrior monks are allowed to use it. She's a smuggler, gets caught using Mortem once, and she thinks she's gonna, you know, get burned on a pyre, but apparently they need a very powerful Mortem user to investigate a bunch of villages being destroyed, and so they recruit her and get her help instead of killing her. At least so far. You never know. Very, very death heavy on this series. For dexterity, I rolled a 10, and a 10 is a random letter title. As you see up here, my random letter was an N, so I need to find a book that I need to read this month for a video that starts with the letter N. This took some thinking. Then I remember Necrobane, which is the sequel to The Warden by Daniel Ford, comes out at some point this month, and I loved The Warden, so I really want to read the sequel, so this can go into my like new releases video. And I requested an arc of it. I don't know if I'm gonna get approved. I haven't gotten approved yet, but hopefully I get an arc and I can read this as an arc. If not, I've pre-ordered it already, so I'll just read it whenever it comes in the mail. This follows Alis, the first ever female necromancer to graduate from the Warden School. She thinks everything is going great, except for her first posting is in the middle of nowhere. And she ends up spending more time, like, helping the locals haul things than her necromancy abilities. But, then shit starts going down, and maybe a necromancer is much more important to this area than she originally thought it was. And maybe this posting isn't as bad as she thought it was. Next up, Constitution. I rolled a 16, which is an arc, which is very helpful since I need to pick project books, and arcs are one of my projects. For this one, I'm going to read A Short Walk Through a Wide World by Douglas Westerbecky. I don't know if I pronounced his last name right, but I have an arc of this. I don't know why I requested this or what it's about. I just know that it's in my approved arcs list. Don't worry, I know what this book is about. This follows a woman named Aubrey, who at 9 years old is cursed, and she has to keep moving. Basically, if she doesn't travel the world, she starts bleeding out of every orifice. Sounds delicious, doesn't it? Yes. This is a story of her traveling the world. She can't return to any place that she's been before, so it's just constantly traveling the world. There's also like a whimsy, mystical, the world's connected by this giant underground library thing going on. And it is compared to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and The Life of Pi. I've read Addie LaRue and I loved it. I've never read The Life of Pi nor seen the movie, so I'm not sure about that one, but I probably requested it because it's whimsical fantasy with a mystical library, because that's my jam. I'm sure I'm gonna love this. Intelligence is, as always, a list of my 24 and 24, so this technically still is a project. We're still on track for that. It is just the list of books, so there's no prompt for this one. I rolled an 18, which gave me White Rage, a book on anti-racism. I hope that's obvious. I requested it from my library. It's on hold. Somebody else is reading it, but they'll send it to me as soon as that person's done. Wisdom, I rolled a 16. 16 is a book planned for a video. Like, why is this just giving me all of the prompts for a paladin to do it so easily? It's just like, have a silver platter of books that perfectly fit being a paladin. So for this one, again, I'm going with an arc. And this one is A Sweet Sting of Salt by Rose Sutherland. I saw this on somebody else's, like, most anticipated, and I loved the cover so much that I don't think I cared what it was about. I was just like, I want to read this book. And whomever I saw it on was obviously somebody that, like, I trust their bookish opinion. So yeah, I'll be reading this. This seems to be a retelling of The Selkie Wife, and it follows a midwife, but it's the story about, like, an abusive husband and a secret pregnancy, maybe. Like, the domestic thriller aspect of this sounds awful, but it is a fantasy, so maybe it'll be better than it sounds. Now I'm kind of skeptical. This is why I don't read the premise of books. And last but not least, we've got Charisma, and Charisma is just a list of books. So this one obviously won't fit into, like, the Paladin unless one of these is for a project. These are just books I want to read. Like, give myself a chance to read a book that I want to read every single month. Why not? For this one, I rolled a 5 and got Cassiel's Servant by Jacqueline Carey. This is a retelling of the first book in the Cassiel's Dart trilogy from the perspective of Jocelyn, who is, like, the male love interest, I guess, in this old school fantasy romance series before fantasy romance was really a thing. I love the Cassiel's series so much. One of my favorite things growing up, I actually have a tattoo from the series of Phaedra's, like, she has a tattoo on her back and I have the same tattoo on my foot, so no free foot pics. I'm not showing you the tattoo, you're just gonna have to trust me. But I picked this up, but I was not a priority to read it because I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel like Jocelyn's perspective. Like, in book 1, he is, like, uptight and not the coolest of dudes. So I'm a little concerned about what a book from his perspective is, but still love the series and really want to revisit this world. So we'll see. I'm reading it this month. I almost explained this book. This takes place in fantasy France and they worship sex Jesus. The motto of their religion is love as thou wilt. And you have sex. You have sex with who you want, how you want. It's all consensual, but sex is the religion. That's the romance part of this fantasy world. There's a bunch of different gods, and each of them likes sex in different ways, and so there's a bunch of different, like, acolytes worshipping each god, and they're pretty much all prostitutes. In the main series, we follow this woman named Phaedra, who is known as Cassiel's Dart, which means she is the chosen of Kashiel, who is the god of painful pleasure, and she gets off on being hurt a lot. She's like the perfect submissive. And then Jocelyn, who's the perspective character of this book, follows the god Kashiel, who doesn't believe in sex. They are like the protectors. So he is hired as a bodyguard for her, but he doesn't want to be her bodyguard because she's a prostitute. And he's like, sex is bad. So, yeah. Hope that explained it in the most uncomfortable way possible. And now is the time I'm gonna figure out what book I'm not reading. So let's roll the dice on that. Okay, so I rolled a 2, which means dexterity's out, which was Necrobane. Now, this is not the worst case scenario, because I can still make the video without reading Necrobane, but I kind of really wanted to read it. So the game's a little bit mean to me, but not that mean to me. It is what it is. It's not that bad. I will survive waiting until May to read Necrobane, even though I really wanted to read it in April. Thank you for being here today. My TBR game wasn't very mean to me at all this month. Like, totally doable. We got 7 books on here. I also have Aurelium. I'm just gonna do a completely separate video for this, so I'll put that up tomorrow if you're interested. It won't be nearly as fun. I'll just list all of the prompts, tell you what book I'm reading for them, and that's it. So if you want 2 TBRs, a second TBR, check that out tomorrow, and I will see you then. Bye.